Welcome back to another episode of 5-5 Sports, where we're in the thick of it in the NHL and NBA playoffs. And myself and Matthew Choi are here to break it down on a brand new episode of 5-5 Sports. Matthew, it's great to have you back again. It's great to maybe it's been a rougher week for us in sports. Your Lakers lost. Montreal moving on in a sweep. We could start there as we usually do with we usually start with hockey. So let's start with the NHL playoffs and let's go to the only second round series that came to a fairly swift conclusion. There were a few talking points I'd say early on in the series, and then as you know, after game two was kind of this is pretty much just pure domination, and we saw Winnipeg almost give up on themselves in game 3 and 4. All that led to a sweep for the Montreal Canadiens. So I'd say the obvious turning point was the Mark Scheifele suspension.
Yeah.
I think we could start with there, as that's probably even after, even 3 games later, even after Montreal got the sweep, it still feels like the most important talking point. I'll ask you, do you think the 4 games was justified? And how much impact did the suspension actually have on the series?
I'll start with the first question. I do think that the 4 games was justified because it's not only was it dirty hit. I think when watching the game, you can tell that it was just pure aggression. It wasn't out of any other it wasn't out of trying to be a defense play or out of like an accident, any sort of accident, or not being as hard as meant to. He meant to do a dirty hit, and that's kind of the result that they got. And I'm not usually someone who likes to put losses on one player not being present. I tried to read. I didn't use that as an excuse for Tavares not being there for the Leafs losing, but I think in this case you could really see just the lack of heart in the later games of the series when Scheifele out, and I think you could see that the team offensively looked a lot more lost. We know that the team wasn't going to be focused on what they could do defensively. We know that Carl Halbach is one of the best goalies in the league, but defensively, around him, it's not the top defensive core in the league. And you rely on the offensive players, and you miss Mark Scheifele, and no one else is stepping up to the role that you need to fill with him gone. That's kind of the result that you're going to get. Because Montreal is a few things that Montreal does have good going for him is that they're pretty strong offensively, and in addition to that, they have good goaltending.
Yeah, on Carey Price. Carey Price definitely stole the first 2 games.
Yeah.
The hit. It took me a night to kind of think about it. At first, I was thinking, it's a 1-goal game. Jake Evans, the puck isn't in the net yet. Mark Scheifele's just trying to hit him. And then when I thought about it, I took the night to review it, look it over, watch the replay, see different angles. Clearly, he charged in, from his own end, basically. There was a lot of aggression. Playoff hockey, you never want to lose a game, especially when you're the favorite. Winnipeg probably had a lot more expectations on themselves, so Scheifele took a little bit of that aggression into Jake Evans on that hit. It was so bang bang and inherently dirty player. I think it was just like a moment. I don't think it was a dirty play. I think it was a moment for Mark Scheifele of just it just a bad decision, point blank. And I think it happened more often not than sports, and in the playoffs, you can have those moments, with non-dirty players committing dirty hits. So do I really judge Mark Scheifele for it? No. Could maybe have been 2 or 3 games, possibly, but could I really argue giving him 4 games? No, because it was a dirty hit. It did injure Jake Evans. And it was unnecessary, and it's something that the NHL is working to remove. So credit to them for putting a stance on their decision and really not looking back on it. So credit to the NHL. I think it wasn't easy to suspend a player of his caliber in that situation, but they did what they had to do. Maybe if they do that for Tom Wilson, people would be a lot less aggrieved with the NHL and their their player safety and decision making that goes on throughout the year. But in this particular instance, I did think they got it right. And just on Montreal, again, it's kind of the similar way they beat Toronto. Took out the best player in game 1, or not best player, but one of the leader, one of the kind of talisman, and then the rest of the guys just couldn't step up. Carey Price put on a performance every single game. He's had 4 solid games here. In their wins, even their losses, Carey Price is solid. So he's really had 11. great games this postseason. Definitely the goalie of the postseason without it. Varlamov is getting some shouts with his recent performance against the Bruins, but it has to be Carey Price for basically stealing, Montreal 2 series in a row. And yeah, Montreal moves on. They'll probably play at Colorado Vegas, where if Colorado Vegas loses to either of these teams or to Montreal, I just credit to Montreal. It would be credit to Montreal at that point. I can't see it happening.
At this point, we've said that they'll be going out in 4 or 5 games for 2 series in a row. I'm not doubting anything with the Habs anymore.
I don't know. I mean, Cole Caulfield, there's a lot of credit because he's,
Yeah.
sparked them, and he's definitely a player for the future. We mentioned that over the last 3 weeks, ever since he was called up against Toronto.
Yeah.
We all knew how special he could be. We saw him in the regular season against Toronto. I think his debut in the regular. I think it was against Toronto. His debut. So, yeah, we saw his talent early on. We saw it continue. I didn't see it as much in the Toronto series. I saw moments in the games from game 3 on. I don't think he was the best player. I think he was still getting used to it, but I truly feel against Winnipeg, he was one of their top 2 players. I just feel like everything revolves around him offensively. And, the big ask for, a rookie who's barely had a full season, it could help them because, less scouting on them. So people are maybe less prepared to play against them. But, you could see the potential from miles away. And he proved it when it matters most, unlike, some of the boys in the Leafs.
Yeah, I can't argue with that there. And even if he doesn't do much producing extra stat wise, when he's on the ice, the offense on the Habs moves a lot better. I think that's something they've been struggling with early in the season, but since he came into the team and especially in the later end of the playoff series with the Leafs, so you could see even without him scoring, the offense just moves better with a player like him on the ice.
Yeah. So Montreal will likely play the winner of the Colorado Vegas series, which is now tied 2-2. We said last week that we both had Colorado Stanley Cup favorites. After they were up 1-0, they went up 2-0, and Vegas managed to tie it back up at home. Yeah, pretty balanced series. No one's blinked. The home team's won every game so far. Will that trend continue going into Game 5?
I think it will, and I think because of that, it's going to go 7, and with Colorado winning in 7, I think as we talked about before, I always said that the winner of these 2 teams are going to Stanley Cup Finals. These are the 2 best teams in the league right now. This is the most exciting series I think they're going to even get the entire playoffs because of how just on a pure talent level. And I think that's really what we've been seeing so far. We see Colorado having edge at times, and then we see Vegas having edge. You can't solely say that throughout the whole series, one team has been overall looking better. I think a team looks better, they win the game. It's kind of as simple as that.
I definitely say the only game where there is a lack of effort was Colorado in Game 3. I definitely they look like a little overly confident. I mean, that could happen when you're up 2-0 and basically dominated the first 2 games. But Vegas reined it in, composed themselves. They've been here, they've done it. They've been to the Stanley Cup Finals before, so they know what it's about. They know what winning this time of year. They know what it's about. So I have Colorado in 6, so I think they win the next 2 games. I think overall talent wise they're better defensively. They're 6 deep. When you look at when you have guys like Nathan McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog all in one line, it's a hard ass to beat them. I think if Colorado win Game 5, they win Game 6, they take the momentum and they take it all the way to the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's why I'll leave it there because we talked pretty extensively about Colorado last week.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been an exciting series for sure. There's really been nothing to separate these 2 teams early on.
Yeah, I completely agree on
that. Boston, New York, the Islanders have taken a 3-2 series lead, really on the back of Semyon Varlamov, who had a shaky round 1. I think it was Ilya Sorokin that was splitting time with him in net, but Barry Trotz gave him a vote of confidence after the game 2 or after Game 3, sorry, and has massively stepped up in games 4 and 5. So how would you assess the series so far with the Bruins on the brink of elimination?
I think last week I said Boston 7, and I think I'm sticking by that. I think they've kept even though every game has been necessarily as close, the series you could see the effort that Boston puts in. I think, and I think again the offensive firepower that Boston has is enough to overcome that tough defense. And Boston's a team like you never expect them to like really go out fighting. They're gonna like bring out everything they can, and if their top guys are playing as you expect them to, they could like surpass like the defense the Islanders has. So I'm going to give the edge to Boston, but Islanders has been having great series. Like you said, Varlamov, like he has been kind of been the standout of like the series so
How
far.
good was he yesterday in that game
Oh,
five? I mean,
amazing.
stole the game. I think the shots were 43-19, but the Islanders put up five. So, yeah, I mean, you could have all the shots in the world, but if they don't go in, they don't go in. I think from Boston point of view, I have to say, as much as we all hate Brad Marchand unless you're, live in the horrible
Yeah,
city of Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we all hate him, but the goal he scored to tie the game up yesterday, I mean, the skate work, the ability to stay on, like, he was basically on the edge of his skate and just found a way to glide past Islanders defenders and put a pass from Malov.
yeah,
Luckily, it didn't matter, but it's so hard to count Boston out. They're going to be going back home. They have their fans for game six. It almost feels like the Islanders have to win in game six, but they don't because, even the Islanders have played them close throughout the series. We thought maybe Boston would have a game or two where they would maybe show their superiority, player wise, skill wise, but just hasn't happened. And again, I'm so amazed at the work that Barry Trotz has done it
yeah.
with that team, the passing they do, like the spacing they have, the way they close down angles on defense. They're such a physical team. They get pucks in that. They play the right way. Barry Trotz has been around for a long time, so he knows how to win this time of the year. And I've just been so impressed by their performance because no one really stands out, but as a team, they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing we see with Islanders every year. Like we can't like, really seek a standout player, but we see them collectively as a team kind of shut down the players that do stand out in the other team for the most part. And really, this series will come down to uh can the defense shut down like players like Marchand for the next two games, and even if Marchand does get past them, can Varlamov provide them the few extra saves? Because it really comes down to like barrier one and barrier two with the
He'll
Islanders.
have to, yeah. Because I mean, the Bruins have that superiority physically wise, so they'll be able to impose their will slightly more on the Islanders.
Yeah,
I mean, they are a little bit of a smaller team, especially forward wise. So we've seen Boston kind of control the puck in their zone a little more than the Islanders have, which is natural.
yeah,
But the Islanders defenders, I think, especially a guy like Pelech, has really stepped up for the Islanders this postseason. I think he really hasn't had a fault in two series, so a lot of credit to him. The one attacker or the one forward I want to give credit to on the Islanders is Matthew Barzal. I mean, I think he's been really the catalyst for them for the last few years and kind of stood under the radar because of how well they play as a team. But without him, that team is nowhere near as good as they are. The way Barzal kind of controls the offensive play, the way he kind of involves everyone else on his line. We've seen the increased success of guys like Pajot and Bailey, and I think
yeah.
a lot of that is playing with Barzal and kind of learning from him as the more experienced guy in that forward core. I'm a huge fan of Matt Barzal. I think he does a lot of things right. And I think if the Islanders manage to get past Boston, a lot of people will be singing his praises more than they have been in the past. Yeah, so credit to Matthew Barzal for really stepping up for the Islanders this postseason because I think it would be a lot different without him for them.
Yeah, we give a lot of credit to Barzell because we always praise his team defensively, but they have a player like Barzell who can get the team offensively going when they need to. And honestly, because that it's because they're such a well-rounded team, that's why they really can realistically finish the game in six. I'm still believing that Boston will, or not more believing, I guess fearing that Boston will still win it in seven because this is kind of what the Bruins do. But Islanders have a well-rounded team, and the fans of the Islanders have every reason to expect them to finish the game in six.
Yeah, I mean, game six is everything
Yeah.
because I mean the amount of momentum the Bruins can take from that, the Islanders still believe no matter what because it has been, it basically margins that the series has been decided by. So
Yeah.
it's not like you're going to look at one side, better than the other. We know Boston is the favorite. They've been playing like a slightly better hockey team overall, but as we know, it's the fine margins in hockey. It's the one bounce that goes your way. We saw the puck go off I forgot the Boston defender is number 75 on the power play, right to Kyle Palmieri, double bounce off the foot, nice little tap in. So sometimes it works out nicely in hockey. But it's not always, the flashy skill players that get it done, like the Marchands or like the Pastas. Sometimes you need a good bounce here or there. You just need good, sound team play, and that's what the Islanders have gone over the last few years under Barry Trotz.
Yeah, completely agree there.
The final series, Tampa Bay, Carolina, 3-1 Tampa.
Yeah.
Yes, it's I think 3-2, but the Lightning have gone up 3-1 in that series. We talked about Carolina last week. They were down 2-0, won game 3, lost game 4. They lost a tight game 4 where it's one of the craziest second periods I've ever seen. The total of 8 goals. But Tampa Bay did prevail, scoring the deciding goals in the first and third period to win that game 6-4. Um, can Carolina make the series interesting? Can they start clawing a comeback, or is Tampa Bay just too experienced? Are they too skilled? Do they have too much, at the back with Hedman and Vasilevsky and the rest of the crew down in Florida?
No, I don't think they're going to keep it close. Maybe they'll win one more game, the Hurricanes, but I don't see them really taking the series to 7. And I'll first say credit to the Hurricanes because they have kept each game close. The talent on the Hurricanes have been kind of like they've been one of the more talented teams all season. They've been very well rounded, both offensively and defensively. And like I said, they kept the games close. They kept the Lightning forced to not take their foot off the gas. But I think it's kind of obvious, like you said, the Lightning are more talented. They're more experienced. They've been here before. Kind of everything that Carolina has good going from them. The fact that they're such a well-rounded team. The Lightning are arguably even more well-rounded team. Plus all the experience they have.
Yeah.
I don't see, and if Lightning haven't stepped off the gas yet, I don't see them doing it in the next few games. And I haven't really seen them do it before. So I'm betting on them to take a series in 5 or 6.
Yeah, I'll actually say Tampa at 7. Carolina gets the luxury of playing at home in Game 5, so I think they'll play 2 close games. I think maybe they'll edge it. It's just a gut feeling. Could be completely wrong, like my my prediction about the Winnipeg Jets being Montreal Canadiens. That's life. That's sports. You get a lot of things wrong when you're trying to predict things. I do like Carolina. I think they played close. I just think it's maybe being their inexperience that lets them down at times. Compared to Tampa Bay, it's been a fantastic series, and just for that reason, I think Carolina will win Game 5. Close. Game 6, they go to Tampa Bay. Maybe they ride some momentum. They have the belief. Pressure's off. Tampa Bay has to win. They were the ones up 3-1, so it's up to them to close it out. They're the Stanley Cup champions, so all the pressure's on Tampa Bay, which is huge for Carolina. So they can maybe play a little looser, play a little freer, play with a little less stress. And having the fans behind them will definitely give them that extra boost because Carolina fans have been rocking ever since we saw them have that full crowd in the first series. So I think Carolina will win Game 5, possibly win Game 6, push it to 7. It's hard for me to see Tampa Bay with all their experience, all the talent. If you go to Game 7, am I really betting against guys like Vasilevsky, Stamkos, Kucherov, Brain Point? You go up and down the list. Victor Hedman, Anthony Cirelli. I can name the whole roster. I mean, they're all pros. They've all been fantastic, and that's why it's hard to beat them because they don't rely on a few superstars. They're so well rounded, which is what you need if you want to win the Stanley Cup. And for that reason, I have Tampa Bay in 7 because I just think they're too evenly matched not to go to 7. And I mean, the 4 games, nothing's really split the 2 teams. So I'll say Tampa in 7 because it's hard for me to see them blowing a 3-1 series lead, but I do think Carolina will keep the series alive and they'll extend it to the max.
That's fair, and I think we can both agree. Like, regardless of how many more games left in the series, they're all gonna be very close games.
Yeah. That is our NHL roundup. Let's switch gears over to the NBA, where we are beginning most of the second round series with one yet to tip off, which is Utah Dallas, or sorry, Utah Clippers. Pardon me. I was hoping Dallas. I think we're all hoping for some Luka Magic, but it is Utah versus the Clippers. So we could preview that series, but talk a little bit about the end of the Clippers Dallas series. Let's start with Luka Doncic, and let's start with a very a blunt question that could go either way. Is Luka Doncic the best player in the NBA right now?
Yes, he is. As of this moment, he is the best player in the NBA. At least from like a talent perspective, from a talent standpoint, I don't think there's anyone who kind of matches up to him at the moment. And I think give if he was given like even a remotely better second option on the Mavericks, they would have taken the series against Clippers easily. I think they would have taken it in like six.
Mhm. Yeah, Porzingis after the series was quoted saying he felt like or I forget what the exact quote was. He didn't feel like a second superstar. He felt like was like supporting
He
part.
was
He felt
towards
like he was
Luca.
just a supporting role. Well, when you play as badly as you have for the last 2 years and you're 7-3, I mean you're lucky you have a supporting role at this point, making the max amount of money. I mean, it feels like Luca and Doncic, they don't fit the. It's almost like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. It feels like,
Did you just say Luca and Doncic?
or sorry, Luca and Porzingis. I may have said Luca and Doncic, but Luca and Porzingis remind me a lot of Embiid and Simmons, except for Porzingis' lack of kind of talent shown over the last
Yeah.
few years in Dallas.
Simmons
Ben
and
Simmons
Embiid both have the
at
talent.
least.
They're just the chemistry is kind of they're too.
Exactly. Like it feels like Ben Simmons on the wrong team because for him to excel offensively, he needs to do a lot more in the paint because he can't shoot, but that's where
Yeah.
Joel Embiid dominates. So it feels like Joel Embiid sometimes push out to the 3 point line to accommodate. But anyway, so we've talked about them and not being a mix for a while, but now it's time to talk a little bit about Luka Doncic. Yeah, he needs better supporting cast because when your best players Tim Hard or when your best secondary players Tim Hardaway Jr., you're never going to win a chip. And the fact that it went to 7 and Luka almost got it done. In the second half, it started to become a lot more clear that the Clippers are going to win. Kawhi Leonard just took over. He started to lock down Luka Doncic, and it really started to frustrate him. In the first half, I was thinking, if this game's going to go the distance, if it's going to go down to the wire, no team's going to be able to go above 10. And the second the Clippers went above 10 points, they never really looked back. And that's when I kind of knew that the game was over, and it was
Yeah.
just going to be Kawhi Leonard is too good at this moment for not Luka Doncic, but for the Dallas Mavericks. So that's kind of where I saw the series end up. That's where I kind of saw like the overall picture of the series go. And yeah, Luka has a bright future no matter what, but they need to get him some help in Dallas because their supporting cast is not it. It's not going to get it done, and
Yeah.
no matter how good Luka Doncic is.
I was watching Game 7. And I was thinking, I was seeing Luca like score up to 30 in the first half. I was like, okay, I think Dallas. If he keeps going like this, I think Dallas has a game. And then you see Kawhi start locking him up a bit more, and then you
Yeah,
start thinking, all right, if no one else helps him out here, the game's over. They're not going to advance, and that's kind of what happened.
and I have to ask, how good was Kawhi Leonard in Game 6?
Oh,
45 points, locked down Luka Doncic. I mean, that was as vintage Kawhi Leonard as it gets, and it
yeah,
was just a joy to watch. I mean, he struggled a little bit early on in the series to find a scoring, but when he has that shot going, it's just a straight arrow, and you can't do anything to stop it because his length is too long, and when he gets that step back, when he gets in that position that he wants, you can't block him. He just you're basically hoping he has an off night. And when Kawhi Leonard gets to his spot, when he gets into that mid range groove, and he
yeah,
has the benefit of the 3 point shot going from as well as whenever he drives, he has that added animosity, the strength. For whatever reason, that particular game, that's what we saw Kawhi Leonard in Game 6. He was unplayable.
yeah, and that's for sure. And this is what you expect from me. He'll dominate you at both ends of the floor, and like he'll do his job against the top player like Luka Doncic while being the top scorer in the other end of the floor as well. Which is why I think he's been I think up there as like one of the top 5 best players for the last few years in the league, and he's proven why he's still there.
Now, the tough question. We haven't seen anything. We've seen some regular season games from Utah and the Clippers, but we all know the playoffs is a different animal. So, how do you see this series going? Because, I mean, there are a few scenarios that I could see happening, playing out.
I I want
It's
to
tough.
say
It's a tough
it's
series to
tough
predict.
series to predict, but I'm gonna go the Jazz in 7, only because even though Clippers did beat the Mavericks, I didn't always love the way the Clippers were playing. I think definitely they tanked face the Mavericks, and they definitely struggled against them far more than we would expect them to. And I think on the other side, if Donovan Mitchell stays healthy, they're kind of playing on that level that we expected the Clippers to be playing last season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Clippers will do their job defensively to an extent, but I just
Yeah.
think that offensively, the Utah Jazz are just too much. If Donovan Mitchell's on his game, if Rudy Gobert is getting those rebounds, is doing his job defensively, I just think it's too much to kind of overcome.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Also, Utah in 7. The simple reason why I don't love the Clippers supporting cast. We all know Utah's a great supporting cast. That's why they have the #1 seed. They don't rely on 1 or 2 players. They don't rely on Mitchell and Gobert. They have a great system around those
Yeah,
guys. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have to be 2 best players. I just don't like their role players. I don't like guys like Zubac. I don't like guys like Batum, Marcus Morris. Feels a little older. Feels a little like he isn't offering the same kind of defensive presence that he's had in his career.
the
Um,
depth has definitely went down since last season.
Exactly. Harrell, I haven't seen too much of, to be honest.
He's on
When
Lakers
he,
now.
sorry, I was thinking, I haven't seen. I was thinking Harrell on the Lakers, but exactly, Harrell's now gone. As is who else? Ibaka's injured, so that's also really hurting their center depth, and that really came into play against Dallas. They really didn't have anyone stopping Luka inside, who's getting to the rim at will. So it really comes down to the support guys. I think Reggie Jackson is their best support player. So if he has a
Yeah,
shot going, great for the Clippers. If not, then the Clippers are in serious trouble because I don't think they have enough scoring outside of their top 2 guys to really push them to the brink.
yeah, I completely agree with that. I didn't mention this, but you mentioned the supporting cast on the Jazz. They have a deep team
They
who,
have the 6 man of the year in Clarkson off the
yeah,
bench. So
and
they're really not short of options.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just looking at Utah, Bogdanovich, he's been fantastic all year. Royce O'Neal provides, great minutes defensively. He can shoot, so if he has a shot going, another added bonus for Utah. I mean, it's going to come down to the wire a lot of times because of the talent that Kawhi Leonard possesses. He's never really going to let them fall out of games. So it comes down to, who's going to be the clutch player for Utah? Is Donovan Mitchell going to clutch up? Because we haven't seen him extensively in the playoffs throughout his career. He hasn't,
Yeah,
had a deep run yet. So this is, I think, a huge series, especially as a #1 seed for Mitchell. But yeah, I say Utah in 7. I think you have the same
yeah.
prediction. So that's let's keep it rolling. Brooklyn, Milwaukee. It's been a series that has been dominated, to say the least, by the Brooklyn Nets. They were up 49 points in game 2. Everyone expected a response from Milwaukee in game 2 that just was never there. And the Brooklyn Nets led from tip off to finish. Can Milwaukee stop the bleeding at home?
I think Milwaukee will definitely slow down like the bleeding. I think they'll take the next game and arguably game 4 as well. They definitely want to have a response, but I surprisingly, I'm going against what I said before, but we'll think the Nets will take the series.
Yeah,
And the reason being is I personally like it better. I like the look of the team better when Harden isn't
without
playing
yeah,
because I think having Bruce Brown in the shooting guard position, I think that offers some more defensively to the starting lineup. And
mm-hmm.
let's be honest, with Kyrie and KD, you don't
Yeah.
need James Harden offensively. Having
It's a
him obviously
luxury
it's
item.
a luxury item, yeah.
It's like
And
Jeff Bezos buying a $500 million super yacht. It's a luxury item. Does he need it? No. But what's he going to do with the other $500 million? He can't take it to his grave. So, luxury item. It makes people jealous. And that's exactly it. It's basically, I want jealous of the Brooklyn Nets and now that they have the 3. But I think it's interesting. I was going to ask you, you basically, prompt the question, are the Nets better without James Harden? It seems like a strange question because, like, usually the easy answer would be no,
yeah,
but because of his defensive liability and the star power that KD already possesses, then you also have Kyrie on top of that. And his vision, he makes everyone else better. Guys like Bruce Brown, guys
yeah.
like Mike James that we've seen future, guys like Blake Griffin, who's basically playing out of his skin since he arrived in Brooklyn. So are they a better team without James Harden?
You know, definitely on paper, no, because James Harden is one of the best scorers in the league, and you just simply aren't a better team. Well, one of the best scorers in the league, but again against a team like Milwaukee, for a playoff, I think for a playoff team, I think yes, they are better because you need to have the guy who can kind of play defense on the perimeter. Kyrie isn't going to offer anything defensively. But he's going to get the ball to anyone he needs to offensively. Uh, and James Harden isn't going to be the guy who does that. I think James Harden definitely helped them in the regular season to just dominate and just to score points. But I think when it comes down to playoffs, I think losing Harden and bringing someone like Bruce Brown to be that perimeter defender is really going to help
Mhm.
them in the long run. And I think I said before when we would argue if Harden if they would win the championship or Harden, I always said it was adding Harden that made me worried about the Nets. And
Mhm.
I don't think I've seen that worry yet, but I do think they arguably look better without him seeing it now.
Yeah, Boston, we didn't get a great read on them just because Boston was, injured and without Tatum, basically a very average team. Brad Stevens was burnt out as, we found out after the series. But yeah, Mike Dream, straight out of Europe, one of the premier scorers in Europe, comes to Brooklyn, does a job, and I think he's done that job, fairly effectively so far. But I mean, you saw KD stopping on a dime, double crossing people over, Kyrie 3-pointers. Just it was easy. It was
Yeah.
easy for the Brooklyn Nets, and they only scored 55 total points. So it wasn't like they dominated to be up 50. It was other guys. It was the depth that they have. Blake Griffin. I mean, he dunked over Giannis. I don't think that we could kind of gloss over that fact. There's not a lot. I mean, Giannis was in the way, and Blake Griffin basically did what he did in a dunk contest a few years back, jumping over the car, getting all the fans crazy. That I mean, it just felt like that. But he jumped over one of the best. He jumped over one of the best defenders in the league to basically. I mean, it was a throwdown. So yeah, Blake Griffin. I mean, the energy that he's provided has given them a serious boost in that experience. I can't see Milwaukee recovering. I think the shot selection was horrible for Milwaukee. They're settling for way too
Yeah.
many jumpers when they don't have elite 3-point shooters. They got to get the ball inside. They got to get Giannis more involved. Brook Lopez, his job isn't 3-point shooting. He can do it, but he needs to be dominating inside, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think what happens is Brook Lopez at times he can be a liability in the paint defensively. Like we know he can what he can do offensively as well, but he's never gonna be a guy that you can depend on to kind of secure that presence in the paint. And
Mm-hmm.
both Brook Lopez and Giannis they stretch the floor more than most bigs in the league, and that's kind of going to be the biggest issue I think going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Brooklyn's going to take in 5. I think Milwaukee wins either game 3 or 4. I'll predict game 4, and then Brooklyn close out in game 5. The other series in the East, help me out here, Matthew. It is
Philly and
Atlanta, Philly. Atlanta
Philly's up
escaped
one.
game 1. If I mean the game felt like it was never going to be close until it ended up being a close box score. What a crazy game. What a crazy game. Atlanta did end up winning the game. Um, Honestly, I think they may be favorites. Do they win this series? I predict Atlanta in 7. That's my prediction. I'll let you predict.
I'm gonna say Sixers and 6. I think Trey Young, like not just Trey Young, I think Collins as well and Dragonovich. I think they all three of them had a great game, but I think especially Trey Young, they kind of caught the Sixers by surprise. I think if Ben Simmons finds a way to lock up Trey Young, I think and kind of limit what he can do, it's going to definitely just Atlanta's going to start to struggle. We're going to see the struggle come, and I think a lot of parts as Trey Young as the point guard, he helps his team also play better as well. Again, lock up Trey Young, you see less protection from everyone on the floor. And
Mhm.
we already know what the Sixers can do offensively as well. With Embiid and like Tobias Harris, we know what they can do. We know what if they're on good shooting, I mean what Seth Curry can do. I really think it comes down to can Ben Simmons stop Trey Young from going off.
That yeah. I honestly agree with you. I don't know if he can. I think Trey Young's that good. I mean, Ben Simmons is a great defender, but I think Trey Young's is almost in that. He's not in the Steph Curry conversation yet when it comes to pedigree,
He's
of
the
course,
closest thing
but
we've seen to young Steph Curry.
exactly. Like they're so similar, and I think Trey Young's only going to get better and better. And he plays that swagger, that confidence. I just love to see from some guys. He wants to, well, give me the ball, I'll make things happen. And I mean, he made things happen. That alley oop to John Collins with like 30 seconds left when it was still like a close game. Like that could have easily ended up in a turnover. That could have easily ended up in a steal going the other way. But no, pinpoint pass, accuracy. It had to be an accurate pass because we may have been talking about a very different storyline. If not, that's just the cockiness and confidence that Trae Young and the rest of the Atlanta Hawks, possess. You look at guys like Bogdanovich, who's really stepped up for Atlanta. I think he's been phenomenal throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
Danilo Gallinari's provided them with excellent minutes off the bench, experience, good shooting, good D. John Collins, he has that all-star potential, and he plays it some games, but I don't know if because he has to take a backseat to Trae Young. I don't know if he's maybe not, getting as many touches as he wants, but I think John Collins can do more.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see his involvement throughout the series. Because I think if Ben Simmons and the Sixers really start to hone in on Trae Young, double team, maybe take Danny Green or Thibault and take Trae Young. And they end up doubling Trae Young, it'll open up space for the other guys, like the Bogdanoviches, like the Herders for three, and the Gallinaris. So I mean, Atlanta have options, and they're well coached. It's Nate McMillan, who's done a terrific job down in Atlanta. Did a great job in Indiana. He really took them to the playoffs, took them to like the 4 or 5 seed when we really didn't expect Indiana to be good, and he's really elevated Atlanta. They were struggling at midseason. Fired I think it was Lloyd Pierce. They fired. McMillan comes in, steadies the ship. I think he's a terrific head coach, and I think they're really playing confidently under him on both sides of the floor.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. Atlanta, earlier, if you asked earlier in the season, we will kind of dismiss them as like kind of the bottom, around the bottom of the East. But they, like you said, they turned around the second half of the season, and they really haven't looked back. They beat the Knicks, and they are going to put up a fight against Sixers, who like people are seeing as the best team in the East, as if it's on one of at least.
Yeah, and Atlanta could definitely pull off an upset. And speaking of upsets, there won't be an upset in the next in the final series we talk about. Denver, Phoenix, both teams are are contenders to win the NBA championship. Phoenix did grab a game 1 lead, did what they had to do at home, and really it was off the balanced scoring. All 5 starters had in between 12 to 14 shots, so no one had any it was very selfless game from the Phoenix Suns, and I think the biggest takeaway is Chris Paul is back.
Yeah,
because he was doing everything, facilitating. Fourth quarter, he took over with this shot, couldn't stop him. He couldn't stop him from finding his passes, he couldn't stop him from scoring, and that 3-pointer at the end of the game really, I mean, the game was kind of over already, but he really like put the final stamp on the game.
Coffin.
Exactly, the final nail in the coffin. So yeah, is Chris Paul back? Because his shoulder definitely looked like it hurt against the Lakers, but it didn't look like there were no problems yesterday against Denver.
Yeah, I think he had one game against Lakers where we kind of thought he maybe was back, and then he kind of slowed down again after. I would say in the beginning of this game, you would think that maybe he still wasn't 100% yet, because he did have a slow start to this game. But I think by the second half, it kind of showed that I think he's picking and choosing when to show. He knows how much he can do, and he knows how much his teammates can do. And I think when he knows he needs to step up, he will do that, and he will not only step up for himself, but as they always make his teammates better. And if you look at the box score, I think 4 guys got over 20 points.
Yeah, Bridges was kind of like I mean, he's been great all year for them, but Bridges really stepped up when his shots going. Phoenix really has another weapon on their hands. Jay Crowder, such a tough guy, and the Lakers really pissed him off. So I think we may see a big series from Jay Crowder. The one thing I'll say before we close off the show this week, because I think we'll have a lot of opportunities to talk about Denver and Phoenix next week as the series develops. It will be, I guess, around game 4 or 5 at that point. So we'll really have a better read on the two teams. The one thing I'll say is DeAndre Ayton had a great game against Jokic. He really limited him. The one place he can limit him is outside. We saw when Jokic had open 3-point shots, Ayton was always late or slow to get to Jokic. He was always late to that assignment. But inside Ayton really did a phenomenal job stopping Jokic. When Jokic only scored in the paint when Ayton wasn't on him, and when he had a smaller guy on him, but that's what Jokic does. So I think if Phoenix control the pace defensively, if they control the tempo on that side of the floor, and they're able to push Denver on the other side, I think they're going to have a long series of Nuggets, because they really have to rely on Jokic. Jokic has to be the MVP if they have any chance. of winning this series. But I think DeAndre Ayton offensively chipped in, did a lot of good things on the offense side of the ball. It really challenged Jokic, and then defensively really pushed him to the outside and forced him to not be as comfortable playing his game, compared to what we saw him do against Portland and the combination of Nurkic and Enes Kanter.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think a huge thing that comes down to end of the series is like, Jokic. We always talk about Jokic. He makes his rest of his teammates better. He Denver's a solid team, but they play even better when Jokic is kind of facilitating as well as scoring himself.
Of course,
The Suns, however, are already a great team just by looking at the pieces they have, and they're elevated even further by a player like Chris Paul, who can kind of just facilitate, and he kind of formed Devin Booker this season too, from the All-Star caliber player to a superstar. And I think we're going to see that kind of progress later in the series. And like we said, DeAndre Ayton deserves a lot of credit because it's not an easy job to stop Jokic.
No. And we will see how the series progresses as the series moves on. We will break it all down for you next week. I hope you enjoyed it. From myself and Matthew Choi, it has been a pleasure. And for 5-5 Sports, we hope to see you next week.